Hey guys, I want to thank you so much for joining us for another weekly devotional. I'm excited to be able to do this with you guys, and I want to thank everybody who's watching. Thank you so much for watching, or if you're listening to our podcast, Glory Now, thank you so much for supporting the church and supporting this ministry. And today I want to talk on guarding your heart. Because the Bible tells us in Proverbs 4:23, it says, "Guard or keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life." So we've got to, it basically tells us what's the importance of guarding our heart, because out of it flow the issues of life. Proverbs 24:23, the Amplified, it says, "Watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flows the springs of life." So we can see that from our heart either flows the springs of life or the issues of life, but it all originates in the heart. The good things, the blessings, the peace, the love, joy, all of that is from the heart. You can have the other issues, depression, anxiety, worry, fear, hate, again, originates from the heart. So we've got to make sure that we watch what we're doing, what we're listening to, what we're meditating on. We've got to guard it so that we can have the springs of life, the good things of life, springing up from inside of us and springing up from our heart, rather than getting bogged down and stuck in the negative things. So Luke 6:45 says, a good man out of the good treasures of his heart bears what is good. So a good man out of the good things in his heart bears what is good. And an evil man out of the evil treasures or evil things in his heart bears what is evil. For of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks. So we can kind of dictate, if you're wondering, well, I think I'm a good, I'm guarding my heart. I'm doing these things right. What are you speaking? What's coming out of your mouth? Because what's coming out of your mouth can be an indicator of your heart, and say, okay, is it positive? Is it good? Is it encouraging? Is it uplifting? Or is it fear? Is it worry? Is it doubt? Is it anxiety? All of these things. So why we got to guard it is because, like I said, it governs your life. The good things come from it. The bad things come from it. And how do we guard our heart, though? A lot of times you'll hear, well, guard your heart, guard your heart, guard your heart. But it's like, well, how do I do that? How do I guard my heart? How can I keep it safe? And when I'm talking about guarding your heart, I'm not talking about, how some people they feel like they have to close themselves off from everybody because they have to protect themselves and they have to make sure their heart doesn't get broken or they don't get hurt by relationships or any of that. That's not guarding your heart. That can be the result of not properly guarding your heart, is having that fear, having that worry to get close to anybody, feeling like you can't trust people. All of that is the result of having a hurt or broken heart, a heart that had not been properly guarded. Or, sometimes life throws things your way that we just don't expect, and it can put us into slumps. But we've got to make sure we don't stay in that slump, that we're able to rise above it and move on and move forward. And there's a lot of ways in the Bible that teaches us how we can do that. Psalms 101, 1-2 tells us how we can guard our heart. It says, I will ponder the way that is blameless. Oh, when will you come to me? I will walk with integrity of heart within my house. I will not set before my eyes anything that is worthless. I hate the work of those who fall away. It shall not cling to me. A perverse heart shall be far from me. I will know nothing of evil. So we've got to guard our hearts. The first thing he did is it says, guard your thoughts. In Psalms 101:1, he says, I will ponder the way that is blameless. What is he saying? He'll think on the things that are blameless. He will think on good things. Proverbs 23:7 says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So we've got to make sure that we watch our thoughts. We watch what we're thinking about. We watch what we have come into our mind, what we meditate on. Philippians 4:8 tells us what we should think on. It says, finally, brothers, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue and if there is any praise, think on these things. So it's telling you what to think on. It says think on good things. Think on things that have virtue in them. Think on things that are worthy of praise, that are lovely. These are the things we need to think on, not things that make us worried, not anxiety, not the worst situation like, oh, this could happen, and you think of every worst possible outcome that could ever happen regarding this one thing, all of that kind of stuff. We don't need to be thinking about, oh, well, I don't like so-and-so, or this is just hard for me, or You know, people have these thoughts like, well, I just don't want to do this kind of stuff because of such and such and such and such, or, you know, everybody hates me, the whole world's against me, I'm never going to be good enough. Like, stop it. You know, that's not what we're supposed to do. We don't want to think on those things. We want to think on the good things of God. We want to think on the promises of God. We want to think on His blessings in our life. You know, focus on all of that. 2 Corinthians 10:3-5, it says, "For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down vain imaginations, and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ." So we've got to understand that our battle's not with other people around us. It's not with the situation, but it's with our mind. It's how we decide to look at these situations, what we put first. Are we going to stand firm and think on God's promises, or are we going to sit and we're going to think about all these hard things in life, all these things going on, all this other stuff? We can understand that we have the power through God to rise above all these thoughts, to rise above all these things. It says we can take them captive, casting down all these imaginations, all these bad thoughts that come up that are against the knowledge of God, that are against the Word of God, that are against the plan of God for our life. We can say, no, I don't have to think about this. I don't have to think on this. I can speak on His blessings. I can think on His Word, and I can encourage myself in God. You know, Colossians 3:2, it says, set our minds on things that are above and not on things that are on the earth. You know, and sometimes that can be hard when they're like, well, I live on the earth. You know, I'm surrounded by all this stuff all the time. So we've got to make the choice to say, you know what? I'm going to focus on heaven. I'm going to focus on the blessings of God. I'm going to focus on the promises of God. I'm not going to focus on all the things of the earth. You know, all the worries, all the anxieties, all the fear, you know, all the hardship, all the stuff that's going on in the world, what my friend says, what so-and-so did, what's happening. You know, instead of thinking on all those things, we say, no, I'm going to choose to think on the things of heaven. I'm going to choose to think on the goodness of God. I'm going to choose to think on the promises in His Word. I'm going to choose to think on what's good, what's profitable, what's holy, what's praiseworthy, what's of good report. Because that's what we've got to do. The next step to guarding our heart is walking with integrity. You know, if you go back to Psalms 101, you can see 101:1. He says, I will ponder the way that is blameless. Oh, when will you come to me? I will walk with integrity of heart within my house. So what's he saying? He's saying he'll keep integrity. He'll walk good even when nobody else is around. You know, he'll walk righteous. He'll do what's right, even when nobody else is looking. You know, a lot of times, sometimes, especially, you know, for people who are growing in these areas, it's easy for them to do what's right when people are around them. You know, when you have the pressures or somebody hanging over you to make sure you're doing it right, and you know, people come into church and say, "Amen, God's got this," and all this religious stuff that sounds good, church lingo. But then when they go home, they don't believe any of it. You know, they go home and they go back to normal. Oh, woe is me. Life is so hard. You know, God's nowhere to be seen. And they start feeling that way and thinking that way. You know, they put on the facade when they go out in public or do things, but in their own private area, it's not real inside of their heart. We've got to make sure it becomes real inside of our heart. And we do that by walking in integrity, by making the decision that I'm going to do what's right, even if nobody else is around. I'm going to do what's right, even if, you know, the odds aren't in my favor. I'm going to keep that integrity. You know, 1 Corinthians 6:12 says, all things are lawful to me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of anything. What's he mean by this? He's saying just because it's okay to do it, like it's not against the law, doesn't mean it's profitable or good for you. You know, and that's what it comes to with walking into integrity. You know, just because everybody else says it's okay, or it's not really a big deal, or, you know, all of these kind of things, it's okay every once in a while. You know, you get all that, and it's like, okay, you know, it might be okay for you to do, but is it going to be profitable? Is it going to help you? Is it a good way to guard your heart? Or is it going to open your eyes or your mind to things that you don't want to be opening them to? Is it going to cause you to think on things you don't want to be thinking on? Or see things that you don't want to see? You know, and to keep that in mind. And he continues on with this passage in 1 Corinthians 6:13. He said, food is for the belly, and the belly is for food, but God will destroy both of them. Now the body is not for sexual immorality, but for the Lord, and the Lord is for the body. God has raised up the Lord, and will also raise us up by his own power. He's hitting on, don't be ruled by your belly. Don't be ruled by your flesh. Yes, there's a point for it, but in the end, your flesh is going to go away. It's going to disappear. So all those things you do, it's not going to be profitable for you. It's not going to produce anything. It's not going to, build up the kingdom of God. So he's saying focus on things that are godly, because he resurrects the body. He brings new life. He brings fresh life to you. So we've got to live in that life, accept that life, and do things that are profitable for the kingdom. That will help us. It'll help our temple. And we do that by walking in obedience and integrity. Hebrews 3:13 says, but exhort one another daily while it is still called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. You see, another thing that can harden hearts or take people out is by going into sin, falling into sin, actively pursuing sin, thinking about it. You don't want to do that. That's why we have to have that integrity. I was reading Job, and a quote in part of Job, he talks about how he said, I made a covenant with my eyes. How can I even look at a virgin? So what he was saying was he made a covenant with himself that I'm going to keep integrity. I'm going to walk righteous, so I'm not even going to go in that direction. I'm not even going to let my eyes go there. I'm not even going to let my mind go there. I'm going to keep that integrity in that pure heart. So I'm not even going to allow myself to be tempted in that area. And that's what we've got to do. Especially if there's things in our life that are like, okay, this is harder for me to get over, this is harder for me, to overcome, this is a bigger temptation, then remove the temptation from your life. Like, don't give it opportunity to be there, Like, if you have a temptation, like, say, for example, eating is something that you love to do, and your house is full of snacks and chocolate cake and donuts and everything and anything. You can just go and eat it whenever you want to because it's good for you. It's like, remove those temptations. Throw them out of your house, because if it's not there, you can't eat it, So think of things like that. How can you remove those temptations so you don't fall into sin, so you don't hurt your heart? We've got to guard it. Next one is what he talks about in Psalms. He says, don't look on what is worthless. In Psalms 101:2, he says, I will not set before my eyes anything that is worthless. So what does that mean? It means watch your eyes, guard your eyes. Matthew 6:22-24 tells us, the light of the body is the eye. Therefore, if your eye is clear, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is unclear, your whole body will be full of darkness. Therefore, if the light that is in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? So what's he talking about? He's talking about how what's inside of us, what you're looking at, what you're filling yourself with. If you're filling yourself with God, you'll be that light. You'll be bright. It'll come out of you. But if you fill yourself with the world, if you look on things with the world, if you go after the world, it'll be dark. So we've got to make sure that we watch what we look at. We watch what we're filling our eyes with. 1 John 2:15-17 says, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and the pride in possessions, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God abides forever. So it warns us to not look after the desires of the eyes. We've got to be careful what we look on, and that comes with all the things, like what we watch, what we read, what we allow our eyes to see. Like, we don't want to watch movies like horror films or things filled with scary things and all of that kind of stuff. You don't want to watch movies with a lot of sex or pornography in it, because those things will get in your mind and you'll start thinking on them, and it can take root in your heart. We've got to guard our hearts. Another thing, going onto social media and stuff. Watch what you're doing on social media, reading on social media, because next thing you know, you're sitting there arguing with people. Well, so-and-so put a political statement on here, so I don't like them anymore. Or, so-and-so is doing this, and you have to feel like you've got to, fight Bible doctrine with them or bring correction, like, oh, I'm just fighting with them it's like, no, like, how are you exhorting them? Oh, well, I'm just bringing correction. Like, well, are you in a position to bring correction in their life? Like, do they know you like that? Or is it just some stranger on Facebook you see, so often, but you don't have a good relationship with, You can't just correct everybody willy-nilly however you want to. It doesn't work. You can't go on and start trying to create debates on, social media and stuff like that to try to prove a point. That's not what it's for. We've got to make sure we encourage each other, we uplift each other. So if you go on, Facebook or social media and all you do is you're reading all these comments, you're reading all these posts, and if by the time you're done you feel awful, you feel worried, you feel anxious, or you feel angry, stop it. Because whatever you're looking at is not helping you, so don't do it. We've got to guard that. We've got to guard our hearts. We've got to guard our hearts from all these things that will try to get us into worry, that'll try to get us into anxiety, We've got to be careful what we look at. Hebrews 12:2, it says, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand and throne of God. So we've got to look at Jesus. We need to look to Jesus. Look to his word. Look to his promises. Look towards his blessing and his goodness. That's what we need to keep our eyes focused on, not on all the other stuff. So again, we have the decision. We've got to guard our heart. God's not going to do it for us. We've got to make the decision to allow in what we allow in and to stop what we stop. We can say, okay, no, I'm not going to watch these movies anymore. I'm not going to listen to this type of music anymore. I'm not going to, get on these Facebook debates about nonsense anymore. I'm going to pursue after God. I'm going to go after him with all I have, because that's what we have. The decisions we make on how we guard our heart. We can either walk in the springs of life, or we can be bombarded by the issues, because it all originates from the heart. Again, thank you guys so much for watching today. I really hope this blessed you, and encouraged you and got you thinking about, how you can better guard your heart. Or if you have guarded it, just be an encouragement to continue doing so, because there's nothing better than walking in the blessings of God for our lives. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and God bless.